Alright, everyone. Oh, I'm kind of loud today. Hang on, just give me a minute. Let me just reduce the volume before I start the stream and deafen everyone. Excellent. Alright. Alright, hi everybody. Welcome to my stream. So today's video will be the first of four first of a series of four where we will be looking through the new decks that Black Chantry Productions just released for Vampire the Eternal Struggle, or VtES, for those of you who are nasty. I am. Yeah, so we've got a co-host today. He is a little bit camera shy, so unfortunately you kind of have to look at some animation instead. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome John. Woo!
Hello.
Alright. Yeah. So John and I have been playing VtES for a while now. Like most of us during the pandemic, we kind of stopped. But I am kind of excited about the new 5th edition decks, the 4 new 5th edition decks that Black Chantry products have just released. And today we'll be looking at one of them. So for anyone who's new to VtES, I mean, I don't think there'll be anyone new to VtES at this point, but if you are, VtES is an award-winning multiplayer, used to be a collectible card game by Richard Garfield, and it's taken a break for a while. Production stopped for a while, and recently, well, in the recent 5 years, Black Chantry Production has picked it up and has resumed production of the game in a new format. John, you wanna talk about what sort of format this is? Because it's not CCG, it's not, I don't know what it is. What do you call it?
I mean, I think it's something akin to Fantasy Flight's LCG kind of format. They come out with these, I guess,
Starters?
box sets where you come with a playset of each card.
Yeah. Fixed
Aside
box
from that,
sets,
they also
basically.
come, yeah. Then they also have the pre-constructed decks, which also contain new cards from time to time.
So it's pseudo LCG, I suppose.
Yeah, you could say that.
Alright, so what are we talking about today?
We're talking about Clan Brujah.
Woo! Clan Brujah!
Yeah.
I'm personally not a very big fan of Brujah, but don't let it, shh, that's a secret. Don't let anybody hear that.
I'm a big Brujah guy, so I started with Brujah. I'm still hold them close to my heart. So
That's good.
yeah.
So looks like yeah, we've got a good mix of love and hate right here.
Yeah. So should I guess I need to say these decks there's a set of 4 decks coming out. They cover more on the Anarch and or independent clans, right? The previous set were Camarilla, so this set's more on the Anarchs.
Yep.
And independents.
Yep.
Right now, as of making the video, they are expected to be released November 1st, right? Where can we get them?
Yeah, so you can head over to blackchantry.com. That's the website for Black Chantry Productions. Just have a look around, and you there's a listing of the various people or shops that you can reach out to get you this product. If you've got a nearby local game store, feel free to talk to them and get them to get in touch with the local distributor for Black Chantry and get them to stock this game. All right, so Brujah, the new box set for this new 5th edition of Vampire the Dino Struggle, and let's have a quick look at what we get out of the box. So, out of the box we have 12 new crypt, well, not new, but 12 crypt cards. 10 of them are unique. They're all Anarch vampires, so you've got duplicates of 2 of them. 3 unique titled vampires for a total of 5 unique vampires. Obviously barons. Lowest capacity is 3 cap, highest capacity is 8 cap, and an average of about 5.5. So I think it's pretty average. It's neither too high or too low. What do you think, though?
Yeah, they give you a lot to work with. Yeah, you have a lot of unique. I mean, there's not a lot of duplicates, so it's a bit inconsistent from that kind of aspect, but gives you a taste.
Yeah, it also means you're unlikely to get stuck with, an opening crypt of all duplicates and just have to spend time digging for more. So that's not too bad. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, onto the library cards.
Onto the library cards. So we get a total of 77 library cards. 12 master cards. I think that's a little high, but that's just personal taste, maybe. 16 action cards, a single ally, 2 action modifiers. Is that right?
I think so.
Combat cards, 24, and 12 reactions.
So it kind of looks like with 44% of the deck being combat cards, this will probably lean towards a more combat strategy. I'm a little bit surprised. I mean, coming from having played VtES for a while now, a little bit surprised with the 12 reactions, considering that this is Brujah. Typically, they're not really known for packing too many reactions.
Yep, but this new box comes with some real game changers in terms of reactions. Shall we talk about them?
Yeah, speaking of new cards, segue.
So I think the biggest card in this whole box is bait and switch. It's kind of a big deal. I'll just read through the text while now. Requires Baron, only usable if a minion is bleeding you after blocks are declined. Lock this vampire and change the target of the bleed to another Methuselah other than the acting minion's controller that Methuselah can attempt to block. So it's basically a free bounce or telepathic misdirection or deflection or what's the other one? It's a bounce. That's free.
Redirection. I think that's the other one.
Redirection.
Lost in translation. If you're talking about disciplineless cards that no one really talks about. Yeah.
Yeah, I think this card will see a lot of play. It's kind of unfortunate that they only give you 2 in the box. But what are you gonna do?
I mean, there's always the option of just getting more boxes, right?
Definitely an option.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think this card will definitely see play in Brujah. Like in this deck, definitely is pretty good. I think the new Ministry deck will probably want to pack a few, but we'll talk about that another day.
Yeah, I think essentially any deck that runs barons that do not traditionally come with disciplines that allow you to bounce, like just to clarify for listeners who are new to VtES terminology, bounce basically just means that after you've while we are being bled, you change the target of the bleed, so you're redirecting and
That's
the
kind of a big.
yeah, basically. Yeah, so any sort of deck that runs barons that do not traditionally have dominate or specs, which are the quintessential bounce disciplines. Yeah, this card, I think it's almost an auto include. There's no reason not to, honestly. All right, and then next up we have
Next up, we have organized resistance.
I'll read the card. So organized resistance is a reaction. It requires a baron and is usable by a locked baron. So this means that it's usable um, by both locked and unlocked baron. And what it does is an anarch you control gets +1 intercept, and also usable to unlock a locked anarch you control, and that anarch attempts to block with +1 intercept, even with if intercept is not yet needed. So it's a defensive card basically.
Yep. Just to clarify on the wording, the Baron can untap himself, right?
Yes, for sure. I mean, if you somehow are an active Baron without being Anarch, I don't think it's possible at this moment. But yeah, it's just I think it's just more so that it doesn't you get some flexibility around it. It doesn't have to be the Baron himself. So someone else, himself or herself, someone else can the Baron can appoint another Anarch to um organize to take part in the organized resistance.
Unlock and block with +1 intercept. That's pretty good for no blood cost.
Yeah, it is. And in a pinch, you could even use it with bait and switch. There is a little bit of a restriction here, though. So if you, because of the way the card is worded, if you use it to unlock, um, you are forced to attempt to block. So you can only bait and switch if that +1 intercept is not enough to um, successfully block. You can't just go, yeah, I don't want to block.
Sure.
All right.
Still good.
Yeah, so we got two pretty good cards. And next up, that one sole ally in the deck, 47 Street Royals. I, I, I don't know, John. This card is just painful to look at. This is why I hate Brujah. They've always got
This
some
is
good.
why you hate Brujah.
I mean, this isn't the first time they've got some ally that
Doesn't do
has
anything.
it doesn't do much. In I think if you're looking from a like a traditional Bruja point of view, maybe there's some use to reducing the bleed, but you now have bait and switch and organized resistance. It's a bit of a hard sell to say, hey, spend an entire action and which can potentially be blocked just to put something into play to reduce the bleed, potentially reduce the bleed against you by 3. And then if your predator then just starts bleeding you for 1 and then 1 and then 1, it kind of feels bad, right?
I mean, it's not all bad. It is free. It can charm block with 1 strength and 2 life. So maybe it manages to block 1 bleed and then reduce another.
That's optimism speaking.
That's optimism speaking, yes. But yeah, your actions are typically better spent putting pressure forward than setting this guy up for you.
Yeah. All right. Next up, we have Line Brawl.
Line Brawl, yes. I like to think of this as a if the card Deep Song and Kindred Spirits had a baby, it's the best of both worlds, really. It well, let's just talk about what it does. Requires an Anarch, and it has 3 action options, right? So at celerity, you can steal 1 blood from another Methuselah. Potence, you can enter combat with a minion, and at presence, you can bleed at +1 bleed. I think it's pretty good. It's very flexible. Plus
Yeah,
1 bleed, always good. Enter combat, is not always nice to have an option. Often the problem is with rush cards is maybe you don't have them when you need them, and you don't really want to pack too many because you're not always going to want to be in combat. So having any card which lets you choose one or the other, that's great. At celerity, it's pretty cute. One thing to note is it's another Methuselah, not your prey, so it can definitely target players across the table or your predator.
yeah, it's pretty good as well as a bargaining chip. That celerity option you can offer to ping someone across the table for benefits or something in exchange, or like you said, you can always just go backwards and put your predator under more pressure. Typically, a predator under pressure means a little bit less pressure on you.
I mean, in this deck in particular, you have a lot of barons. Sometimes you are the swing vote, so or even when you're not the swing vote, just that little bit of extra bargaining power helps.
Yeah, always good. I mean, to be honest, just before we started the stream, you were asking me whether I still think Line Brawl is a bit of a card. Uh, I mean, I guess it's strong. I still think uh, the effects by themselves are not particularly amazing. I mean, it's really you know and it's an analog effect that allows you to run um, all these abilities at inferior, so you don't need superior to get the +1 bleed or the steel pool or whatever it is. But yeah, I don't know. I won't say it's a weak card. I might be convinced that it's got its uses.
It's very flexible, and I think, anytime it's in hand, you can find a way to play it.
Yeah, for sure. That's that's definitely a big selling point for this card. Um, yeah. So speaking of traditional Brujah decks, I keep mentioning Brujah decks used to be this, used to be that. Here's an old card that has been slightly updated. Uh, Quickness. So just have a quick read through of what it does. It is a combat card that requires celerity. It says a vampire can only play 1 quickness each round, and this means you can only play it once, regardless of which discipline level you're playing it at. At inferior celerity, it's an additional strike limited, which means you can only get this additional strike once, regardless of the source. And at superior celerity, you get an additional strike that does not count against the limit. So basically, it's additional strike without limited. Yeah,
Yep,
it's not a new
I
card.
think it's not a new card, but it used to cost 1 blood. So with this release, the blood cost is now gone. So I think it's the first additional strike without a cost at inferior celerity, right?
Yes, I believe so.
I think that's a pretty big deal for weenie decks. Previously, celerity at inferior didn't have a lot of great cards to choose from, but now you have a free additional strike. Play that with someone with a gun or something. You can deal some damage.
Yeah, just looking at one thing though, just looking at what's available in this deck particularly, you're you're unlikely to see much use from the superior version of it. I think just because a mix of there not being too many vampires with superior celerity, as well as there not being too many other cards that allow you to gain additional strikes. So you can't,
Yeah,
because you can't run two quickness in succession to get, one additional strike.
At most you might play Dust Up at celerity for the dodge and additional strike, and if you have superior celerity, you can additional strike again.
Yeah, but it's a bit of a stretch. Maybe Pursuit as well, but you're not likely to see it happen too many times, to be honest.
Yeah,
Which is a bit unfortunate.
not in this deck.
It's a great card though. It's still amazing as a card by itself. Yeah, it's unfortunately not so much in this deck. All right,
And
so
I like
that's
the art; it's pretty good.
oh yeah, the art's definitely better. I mean, when was the last art drawn up? It was like 1990s. I'll I'll be surprised if they use the same art again. A lot of the art's been updated across the entire range of existing cards. So
Yeah, I think they've in the last couple releases they really stepped up the art, and it really looks great.
yeah. All right, so those are the new and I guess refreshed library cards. And so now let's have a look at what are the new Crypt cards. Well, to be fair, all the Crypt cards are new. So maybe we'll just have a quick look at some that are more notable. I was gonna say standout-ish, but it just sounds weird. So first
Sure.
up, I have to apologize in advance. I'm pretty sure I'm going to totally just butcher the pronunciation of her name. I did try to run this through Google Translate, but yeah, not confident. So I think she's called Aline Gideki. I think that's what Google Translate said. So she is likely to be, I think, the key vampire in this deck. Uh, so she is obviously a Brujah vampire, um, 7 capacity with inferior celerity, superior potence, superior presence. She's one of the 3 Anarchs in the deck. 3 Barons in the deck. She's the Anarch Baron of Mannheim, and once each turn, she can burn 1 blood to unlock after another Anarch you control performs a successful action. I actually misread this card.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
It
initially
was only when she completed an action.
no, I thought she can burn a blood to unlock another Anarch after they've performed a successful action.
I
It's
think
not. She
roughly
unlocks.
comparable.
She unlocks herself.
Yeah, she unlocks herself.
I mean, it's still a great effect because it gives her multi-act options, right? You can
Right.
you can bleed and then have someone else do something else, and actually she ties in pretty well with one of the another new card that we're gonna talk about in a little bit. But yeah, so she can bleed and then have someone else do something and then unlock herself, and it's always good to have multi action to there's some setup cards that you don't really want to spend an action on, you rather just bleed, but with her ability you can play cards like um, enchant kindred as superior, or get herself ready for combat with heroic might, even
Or if you wanted to keep the forward pressure, you could even line brawl at celerity.
yeah, that's true. Yeah, so I think definitely she's going to be one of the key. She's got everything going for her, right? She's a baron. She can unlock. She says superior potence. The inferior celerity is a bit unfortunate, but you can't have everything,
I
right?
mean, for Anarch cards, you really don't need the superior celerity. And with quickness at inferior, I don't think she needs. Yeah, that's. I don't think she needs it.
Maybe I'm just spoiled by load-in. Cards that have everything. Yeah.
Sure.
So yeah. So speaking of vampires that she kind of works well with, here's the next one.
Yep, similar to Nat. Oh, I'm assuming it's a. Well, actually, I have no idea what the origin of this name is, but I'm probably gonna mispronounce it anyway. Ellen Kamjian. She's a full cap anarch with superior potence and celerity. If you control a locked minion, she must bleed at +1 bleed, unless she must hunt.
That's pretty interesting.
That's pretty interesting. A full cap with 2 superior disciplines, that's pretty good.
It is. It's very rare actually
Yep,
to have that.
Yep. She's missing her in-clan presence discipline, but with the card text, it's not missed all too much because, in this kind of deck, the most you're gonna use presence for is for extra bleed, but her text does it for her.
Yeah, unfortunately, it is a mandatory action. So with mandatory actions, if you must do it, it has to be the next action, or you have to take that action in the next available opportunity. So some planning's involved, but I think she definitely works extremely well with Eileen, just because um, you basically end up in a situation where you maybe bleed with Aline or steal a pull with Aline or whatever it is, and then Alan's forced to bleed. So if that is successful, then it gives Aline the opportunity to unlock.
Yep.
Yeah, I think she's pretty good. 4 cap, she's cheap. Plus, honestly, what else are you gonna do?
Yeah.
Yeah. Next up is a new card. Technically, I think this set has got a few of them, but this is the first time. Correct me if I'm wrong, John, but this is the first time in all of VtES history where a vampire that was originally printed with under a different group has been reprinted with updated card text, updated effects, but in a different group.
Yeah, no other occurrences come to mind.
Yeah, I think this is the very first time they've done this. Off the top of my head, I think there's maybe one other, but it's also in this particular release, which we'll talk about in another video.
Yep.
For those of you who are new to deck building in VtES, that number in the top left hand corner of the ability text on a vampire, in this case 6, is the grouping number. When you build a deck, all of the vampires must be within one grouping number of each other. So if you're group 6, which is I think the highest number grouping at this point, your entire deck has to be either group 5 or group 6. Your entire crypt, sorry. Uh, yeah, I think. Well, if nothing else, I like the art. It's 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 better than the advanced steel bell by miles.
Yeah, I mean, he more or less does what the
The
other
original,
the original
yeah,
Tio did, right? I think you mentioned his disciplines were slightly better.
yeah. I can't remember off the top of my head, but he picked up something. I think superior celerity, if nothing else, and maybe the specs. Yeah. Other than that, I think fans of Diobel would be excited. Um, Other than that, he's really not much else other than yeah, it's pretty solid. The vampire.
I
3
think
superior
he has
discipline.
the same disciplines as the advanced Tio.
He has the same discipline spread as the advanced. Yeah, he does.
Yeah.
Yeah, so which was an upgrade from the original Theo.
I think the main difference is the original advanced Tio was not an anarch, right? He
No,
was
he
just an
was
independent.
no, he was Camarilla.
Oh,
I think the The
Then the
original
advance was
one. Yeah, then the advances was independent. That's right.
independent. So this is the first time you're getting a printed Anarch Theo.
It is. Yeah, we'll talk a little bit more about him later on. So, what do you think of the new cards so far, John?
Well, if you're talking about Crypt, we get 3 new Brujah Barons. I think that opens up some options. We didn't talk about all of them, but they're there. And as I mentioned earlier, the 2 reactions, Organized Resistance and Bait and Switch, are going to be big deals. That's what
Yeah,
I think.
to be to be honest, bait and switch and organized resistance might be the only reason why I pick up Brujah deck this time around. It's a solid deck. I'm still not a big fan.
Sure.
Uh, yeah. We've got someone in chat saying that they didn't realize that the errata for quickness now makes it now free. Yeah. I might have forgotten, but I don't remember there being a big sort of notification or a big marketing blast to say that quickness has been updated to be free. I think it's one of those things that was snuck in under the
Yes.
radar and they just assume people had saw it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Good change, I think. Inferior celerity needed some help.
Or quickness as a card needed some help. Hardly see it at all. No one wanted to pay that one blood for the inferior additional
Or
strike.
superior.
Yeah. All right. Let's move on to the strategy for this deck. So you've picked up this new deck. What do you do now?
Well, this deck's archetype is what would typically be referred to as the bruise and bleed archetype. So basically, what you want to do is bring out some vampires that can fight, bleed your prey. If they get blocked, punch them faces in.
Sounds about right. Sounds about pretty much what Brujah's been doing since Brujah's been around.
No, not entirely. I mean,
Kinda ish.
kind of ish. You get your Demetra decks and your Euro Brujah, which aren't as bleedy or punchy, but
Yeah, fair enough. But the typical Brujah deck is basically, yeah.
that's what their clan disciplines want to do out of the box, basically. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so essentially trying to, you know, spend the initial part of the game trying to build up. There's not much. You do have access to Enchant Kindred, but you don't have too many vampires with superior celerity. So, sorry, not superior celerity, that's superior presence. So the superior part of Enchant Kindred isn't going to be overly consistent. Um, I will just quickly read the card text for Enchant Kindred. So Enchant Kindred is an action, requires presence. At inferior presence, it allows you to bleed with +1 bleed. And at superior, it's a +1 stealth action that allows you to add 2 blood to a younger vampire in your uncontrolled region. And this 2 blood comes from the blood bank. So it's essentially free blood plus, to borrow terminology from Magic Gathering, ramp. Unfortunately, you only have, I think, 1 8 cap, 2 7 caps, and 1 6 caps with superior presence. So it doesn't, unless you've got a nice opening hand, it doesn't really flow well there.
So aside from Enchant Kindred for bleeding, we also have Show of Force and Line Brawl, which you talked about earlier. Show of Force is it really embodies the bruise and bleed nature of the Brujah, where you bleed with increased bleed, and you're ready to fight if you get blocked.
Yeah, red stealth they call it. If
Red
nobody,
stealth.
yeah, if nobody dares to block you, then your action is at stealth, basically. But yeah, so show of force,
Yeah.
line roll, pretty much your bleed options.
Yep. Now the two learn action modifiers in the deck, which we mentioned earlier, are Monkey Wrench. Requires an mana. During a bleed action, pay X and get plus X bleed. X must be 1, 2, or 3.
Yeah, so that's pay X blood for 1, 2,
Yep.
or 3 additional bleed. What do you think about Monkey Wrench in this deck?
I think it's fine. I mean, the alternative is Air of Elation, right? Which isn't a whole lot better. At inferior, you only get +1 if I recall, and at superior, you get +2.
Yeah, Air of Elation is one of those weird, slightly less common sort of card formats where if you're a specific clan, you get some benefit, but otherwise, yeah, it's just +1 and a +2.
I think it works here because it works on vampires like Ellen, who doesn't have discipline, and you can really lunge with that +3 if once you get through. Because that's the thing with Brujah, right? You can't, once you're through, you're gonna hope it sticks. Otherwise, things are gonna get blocked.
Yeah. So yeah, this is also good for like sometimes, let's say you have 3 maybe 4 minions on the table, and you take your first action and you just play for 1. You don't use enchant interest, you don't use show of force, you hold back your line brawls and just trick your prey into thinking, hey, this is just a bleed for 1. If you block this, I'm gonna throw all these other cards at you with my other 3 minions, and then you can use this like a surprise 3 additional bleed, which does count for a fair bit, to be honest, especially in a sort of starter only environment. Yeah, so that's bleeding. The bruise
We'll
plot.
move on.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Sorry. Yeah, the bruise part of
Go ahead.
this basically typical potence plus celerity combat. I think you mentioned earlier, I can't remember, was it on stream or off stream, that you're not too familiar with celerity potence sort of combat strategies, but
Yeah, I typically go for the guns myself, but fists work.
I mean, you do get like 44% of the deck combat cards, so I think in this deck, if you're playing this deck, you get a chance to fight. Just throw whatever you have, go for it. Don't hold back on your combat cards. They're not gonna do anything but sit there if you don't. Just use everything. So combat typically would just be Tonsine Pose. So Tonsine Pose is a potent combat card, only usable before range is determined, and it gives your vampire either +2 or +3 strength for the whole combat, depending on whether you play at inferior or superior. And then keep your fingers crossed that your opponent doesn't maneuver way to long range, and use Immortal Grapple. So Immortal Grapple is another potent combat card, only usable at close range before strikes are chosen, and it's a grapple. And it basically just says that only hand strikes are usable by both sides in this round of combat. At superior, it gives you an optional press, and if another round of combat occurs, that round is at close range, and you skip the determined range part for that round. So
no majesties or whatever have you to escape combat when you get grappled. Or
yeah,
dodges.
yeah, it prevents people from ending combat with strike combat ends, it prevents dodges. It also prevents, if for whatever reason you end up in close range with someone with a gun, they can't use the gun either.
Sure.
Yeah. So Immortal Grapple, and then just punch face for 3, or use cards like Dust Up at Potence for additional damage, or you can use Slam, or even there's a newish card that came out with the previous release of 5th edition, which was Roundhouse. So yeah, just a lot of damage, and then like you mentioned before, with quickness and also with cards like Pursuit, you get additional strikes, and then you just punch them harder again. It's basically potent celerity combat.
Yep.
Yeah. So just want to quickly talk about this card, Taste of Vitae. It is a disciplineless combat card, only usable at the end of a round of combat. And it's got a wall of text, but essentially what it allows you to do is allow you to gain blood equal to however much blood your opponent lost this round. So it's a way of, just because a couple of things. One is your vampires will spend blood, along the way, and also because Brujah doesn't, the discipline spread for Brujah typically don't allow them to prevent damage in combat. What happens then is you kind of want to use Taste of Vitae to get blood back. So that's the, I guess that's the offensive package. You could so just bleeding, and then combat to make sure people are afraid of blocking you so that your bleeds land. So how do
Yep.
you defend yourself then?
Well, we talked about organized resistance and bait and switch earlier. I think we mentioned earlier, or maybe not. Blocking is not something Bruja are typically good at. So, a surprise untap at +1 intercept. Well, it'll be surprising for a while. I imagine people get used to it pretty quick, but it's not something Bruja used to be able to do. Aside from Princes, of course.
Of course, because Princess. I mean,
Yep.
yeah.
So bounces, untap and blocks. Alternatively, yeah, you go in first. You use Line Brawl or TO. You can rush in and start punching some faces before they even start bleeding you.
Yeah, what was that term they used to use for this tactic? Or the salmon defense. So you swim backwards, um, just like how salmon swim upriver, and you just make sure that your predator is too weak to do anything to you on their turn. It, I would say you kind of want to be a little bit careful with this strategy of rushing backwards, though. You don't want to completely destroy your predator, because then what happens is then your grand predator just sweeps in and you have a brand new predator and you have to do it all over again.
Yeah, don't be afraid to talk first. Talk first, ask questions later. Or wait, that's not how it goes. In any case, talk to them. Try to negotiate. Like maybe don't bleed me so much next turn, and I won't punch your face in. Deals like that, can keep a table stable.
Yeah, you could even use, um, you can even do offers like, if you don't bleed me next turn, I will punch in the face of that other minion who has been bleeding you lots for the past couple of turns. That's also an option.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's rushing does come with some um with great potence comes great responsibility. Is that what they say?
Close enough.
Close enough. So that's offense, defense, and in every VtES game, you need some blood and pool strategy. So yeah, blood recovery is basically with a lot of it is master cards. And up free press, covers meat packing, storage, Warzone hunting ground, Carfax Abbey, which is also in the hunting ground, and then just use blood dolls to either add additional blood to your vampires or move excess blood from your vampires into your pool. The good thing is, I think the deck doesn't have too much blood costs or pool costs um, compared to some other sort of more blood intensive strategies. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm
I
right.
mean, the
I think I'm right.
the the hunting grounds, they're kind of pricey, but they kind of pay themselves off in the long game. Is if you manage to live through it. Guardian Angel is in there. That's kind of pricey as well. It's I think it's kind of on the expensive side, but got plenty of blood dolls too.
Yeah. Plus, you're not going to play everything, right?
Yeah.
There's also, like I mentioned earlier, Taste of Vitae for blood recovery. You can use Enchant Kindred as superior to gain pool by adding pool to your minions in an uncontrolled region and then transferring back to your pool. You always consider, picking on soft targets for blood recovery if you need to.
It's going to be a bit of a balancing game with Brujah. Like you said earlier, they can't really prevent damage coming in. So if they get punched back, sometimes you do need that blood on your vampires.
Yeah, definitely. You can even, yeah. Oh, I put Line Brawl in here just because I was thinking that if you're low on pool, like you mentioned before, Line Brawl is kind of a very flexible card, right?
Yep.
Yeah, you get the option of like doing table talk to your cross table buddies and say, hey, I'm low on pool here. Can you just let me steal one pool from you since you've got like oodles? You don't have a way of paying it back, but that's not what VtES is about, right? All right, so that's basically the Brujah deck as it is out of the box. Let's talk a bit about what's next. So what do you do to upgrade the deck? I think off the top of my head, it's just really just get two decks. There's so many cards in there that's worth getting double off. Bait and
Yeah,
switch.
definitely. There's some streamlining you can do. Of course, you can also adjust the quantity. Once you get two, you can adjust the quantities up and down to taste. Sometimes you like to be a bit more bleedier. Sometimes you want to be a bit more punchier.
Yeah. Although I
Depending on
would
your
say,
meta.
just cut out the 47th Street Royals.
Yeah, 47th Street Royals. I think we said enough about them.
Yeah. Theobel. You've got some notes about Theobel?
I just think he's just a bit too old and doesn't have a title. He just doesn't really gel with what the whole deck is going for, I think.
Fair enough.
He's not a bad vampire, not at all. I think definitely there's a deck you can build with him in it. I just don't think this is it.
He does give you the option of entering combat with another minion though.
I mean, that's good, but when you have Line Brawl as an option, you have that option in your deck. You don't need it on your vampires, and it's not like you're holding dead cards with Bum's Rush in your hand.
Yeah, that's true. And I think
go ahead.
Yep, I think Show of Force as well. Just because Line Brawl is, I mean, Show of Force isn't necessarily a bad card, but in this deck, especially with Double Discipline, the number of vampires that can't actually play it properly, and also you've got access to Line Brawl. Line Brawl is just better. You got 2 decks, swap them out.
Mm-hmm.
And
And
Roundhouse.
the other one, Roundhouse. It's another thing, kind of like what you were saying with Show of Force. Is a solid card, and not everyone's an Anarch, so there are definitely decks where you can play Roundhouse. But Dust Up is just as good at Inferior, and it has the celerity option, which is definitely good as well.
Yeah, sometimes that dodge with an additional strike can save your minion.
Yep.
Yeah, I totally agree. If it's just this deck, take these cards out. So we've taken these cards out. What do we replace them with?
What do we replace them with?
So I think generally there are not many. With 2 decks, you basically have enough library cards to replace the the 47th Street Royals, the Show of Force, Roundhouse. We talked about them. With Steel Bell, I think there are a couple of Group 5 and Group 6 Anarch Brujahs that are actually not in this deck, and cards like Laura Goldman. How do you pronounce this? Lumiere? I,
Or
I can't pronounce this. Yeah, they're Lumiere especially is an Anarch. Sorry, it's a Baron as well. So that's additional benefits. With inferior discipline spread, isn't that big a problem for Anarchs? And there's always Laura Goldman as well, just because she's cheap. 3 cap is pretty good for this deck. Run it cheap.
yeah, run it cheap. That's the thing. You don't want too many duplicates, so just a variety is good as well.
Yeah, for sure. I also kind of think this is Nosferatu Vampire that I sort of put in the notes. Jacques Rouge, he lacks the celerity, but he actually plays pretty well with cards like Line Brawl and Dust Up at Potence. I mean, you lose the celerity bit of it, but I think he can still run a significant amount of your deck. Plus, he's also a Baron. So he's a Nosferatu Group 6 from the previous release with inferior animalism, inferior potence, inferior presence, superior obfuscate, and he's the Baron of Versailles. Just being a Baron is really really good to run bait and switch and organize resistance. What do you
Sure,
think?
but I think there's enough Barons as it is in Bruja. We get Lumia and the 3 in the box. That's 4 Barons. If you run 2 each, that's already 8 of your Crypt. You might not even need that many.
Fair enough. All right. So that's the deck. Oh, sorry, I forgot. We forgot to talk about the library cards to consider. So more bait and switch. We keep talking about this. Can't recommend this enough. You put down Club Illusion.
Yeah, like we said, there's only Monkey Wrench as the action modifier. So sometimes when you've beaten down your prey enough, they're just not. They don't have the strength to block. That's when you turn on the Club Illusion, and it's kind of expensive, but sometimes you just need that extra speed.
Yeah, true. Fair enough. And speaking of action modifiers, you also have uh, Power of One. Sorry, I got the wrong card displayed. Yeah, so Power of One. I think it's really, yeah. You're playing an Anarch. You have you have potence. You have presence. It's really no brainer. This one.
Yeah,
Plus,
at presence is +1 bleed and +1 stealth.
yeah, that's
Good
stealth.
stuff.
Stealth is always good. Make people combat doesn't always get you the win, right?
Yeah.
Because someone might just throw a small vampire under the bus to prevent your huge bleed. So yeah, stealth always comes in handy.
Yeah, maybe you play, they played their own 47th Street Royal, getting ready to block, and you put your power of one, and you're through.
So this is anti 47th Street Royal card deck.
Whatever ally they might be playing to block.
Fair enough. Yeah. Speaking of stealth, I think Resist Earthgrasp is a pretty good option in this deck. Again, it does run into the problem where you don't really have that many superior celerity, but a press or a maneuver with an option to press is always good, just in case you come up against someone with guns or Animalism's favorite hit from bats.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of these cards, they are kind of, increase the blood costs of the deck, so might need to play a few times to see how that ends up.
Yep. Totally agree. You've also listed Protection Record.
Yeah, I just think Protection Rack is a good card. It's the +1 intercept, with an additional +1 if the minion is titled, and you only need to be Anarch, which everyone in the deck is. So,
Yeah.
Organized Resistance, Protection Racket. It's those two cards together. It's an untap with +2 or 3 intercept with no blood cost. I think that's a good combo.
Definitely. Might even start to see some Brujah wall decks. I mean, I'm
Sounds like
stretching it
fun.
here, but still.
Oh, I don't doubt it. I mean, yeah, maybe not a wall deck, but 2 intercept.
It's decent.
It's about the same level as second tradition, right?
Yep. Split over 2 cards, but no blood cost, and you can run it on someone else, which is good.
You don't need to be titled.
You don't need to be titled. Exactly. Yeah, so these are some of the cards I think you can consider to improve the deck. Like John mentioned, blood cost, even pool cost is an issue that you might want to pay attention to. But if you can work out the math and get it all working pretty well, I say go for it.
Yeah.
So you've played this deck. Let's say you've played this deck a few times. You want to try something new. Where can you go from here? What's next?
Well, I mentioned earlier I started with Brujah. One of my earlier decks started with Demetra Ilyanova. She's kind of a big deal. She's a Camarilla Brujah Jessica. So that's 3 votes. Like I mentioned, there's plenty of new Brujah Barons around. So the cute thing is the Brujah MasterCard News Carthage titled Brujah get +1 bleed and +1 vote. Venture gets +1 vote. So that also applies to Barons, right? You've traditionally only ever seen it with Carthage and a bunch of princes maybe, but yeah, it works just fine with Barons as well.
Yeah, I can get behind this. Definitely.
Yep. Demetra's group 5, so she doesn't get. She's a Camarilla, of course. She doesn't get to play with the cool
Anarch tech.
But she has her own built-in vote. Maybe
Plus,
she doesn't need to worry about second edition, but yeah.
Yeah. Plus, it's Demetra, right? How can you say no to
Yeah,
Demetra?
exactly.
Nobody's gonna say no to Demetra. She's also a pretty good candidate to be playing Enchant Kindred to bring out your smaller minions as well. So she kind of covers ramp, a little bit of full cost, and she covers blood cost with her special ability.
Yep.
I think the easiest way probably is just get Demetra, get new Carthage, and then get the Toreador 5th edition box set from the previous release, because that gives you a whole bunch of political cards, and then you just pick and choose from there.
Personally, I'd go for Reckless Agitation, but
yeah, I knew you was gonna say that.
Yep.
That's not a bad idea. Yeah,
definitely you want a couple kind resources contested at least.
For sure, you always want one of those. Oh, a handful, more than a handful of those, to be honest.
Yep.
Yeah. So, what do you think? You excited about this new deck?
I am. Yep.
Yeah. I mean, it's a bit of a redundant question, right? Asking a Brujah fan whether you're excited about Brujah deck.
Yeah, a little.
Yeah, I have to admit it is a pretty exciting deck. The new Anarch tech, Baron tech, bait and switch especially, even organized resistance, and also the change to quickness. That art is something worth just getting it for. Honestly.
Do correct me if I'm wrong. You can play the older, if you have older copies of Quickness, you can play them without the blood cost, right?
Yes, for sure. The new blood cost, or the new lack of blood cost, applies to all copies of quickness out there. So it's a complete errata on the cards. It's not like you have to play this one. It is nice though not to have to remember.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. All right, so we've come to the end of the Brujah deck review. Thank you, John, for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so I hope we've found this somewhat helpful. And if you think we've missed anything, or if there's anything else you'd like to see, and you're watching this on YouTube, let me know in the comments below. And until next time, see ya.